Isekai Nonbiri Nouka.
Chapter 6. I woke up. After washing my face normally and eating rabbit for breakfast that I'd cooked, I prepared what I needed to take with me and psyched myself up. My immediate goal was to obtain the plants being cultivated in the fields. With the all-purpose farming tool in hand, I crossed over the moat confidently. But when I looked at the field, I was surprised. Little sprouts were emerging from the ridges of soil, neatly spaced apart. Had someone planted seeds here? Who could it have been? Even if they had, these plants are growing too fast. A god, perhaps. I looked down at the all-purpose farming tool in my hand. Before coming here, I'd carved a statue of that god I met earlier. He appeared as an old man or young man, depending on your perspective, quite an odd-looking god. My skill isn't perfect, but I managed to create something resembling him from memory. Oh yeah, the person who arranged for this all-purpose farming tool said they had a different role. I don't know what that person looks like, so I imagined them while carving. Was I supposed to be plump if I was in charge of agriculture? If one were to farm, wouldn't it have to be done smartly? After much thought, an image resembling the blooming old man emerged. I carved a crude shrine from part of my wooden bedding, placing 2 wooden deities within. Thank you, gods. I prayed for some time before altering my goal: protect this field. First, let's assess the current situation. My large tree bed, the well, fire pit, and toilet encircled by logs and a moat. Surrounding them is the field, stretching 50 meters square with 12 sections. 4 central squares are living spaces, surrounded by fields. Tiny sprouts dot every field. This is my responsibility now. First, I'll prepare fencing around these fields to keep everyone out. Wildlife. I'll turn them into fertilizer, using this all-purpose farming tool. I was in high spirits as I built a fence around the field using logs. I dug moats too. In places close to forests, I cleared those forests and used them for fuel, despite it being troublesome to obtain wood materials because of the risk of intrusion from above. I prepared 4 entrances and boards to cross over the moat. These tasks took about 5 days. During this time, small sprouts grew steadily. 6 rabbits with teeth entered the field and became fertilizer, along with 1 puppy-sized rat that I didn't consider for food, as there was a giant boar nearby. The boar stood at around 2 meters tall when viewed from the front, had similar width, and was about 4 meters long. It was quite intimidating, but since it approached my field, I made up my mind. I used the all-purpose farming tool to sever its head, and decided to enjoy its body for food. Now I feel fulfilled, happy even. At least now, my defenses against beasts seem solid. But enemies of the field aren't just beasts, there are birds and insects too. I haven't seen creatures as large as rabbits or mice yet, but birds and insects are definitely present. They probably haven't touched my fields because they don't see the value in them yet. But once fruits start to form, I'm sure they'll come swarming. I need to think of some sort of strategy. Oh right, what can those sprouts do? Each field has different types within itself and varies between each one. They're edible, aren't they? Please let it be something edible. If these are just ornamental plants or require support like stakes, I'd probably crumble to my knees. Damn it. As someone who only imagines farming, my knowledge is severely lacking. If only I had studied more while lying in the hospital. There's no use regretting now. Let's start with what we can do. First off, for bird control, maybe a scarecrow would work. Just as I was thinking this, I heard an animal sound coming from the fields. It sounds like dogs barking, trying their best to intimidate. I approached the sound with my all-purpose farming tool, hoe in hand. Beyond the log fence and moat surrounding the field, there was a large black dog. Its size was undoubtedly that of a big dog. Its head reached about as high as my chest, and if it stood up, it would certainly tower over me. The large black dog was barking at me. Oddly, I didn't sense any hostility from it. Behind the first dog, there was another similarly sized black dog. Upon closer inspection, I could see that both dogs were covered in wounds. I opened a nearby entrance and laid a plank across the moat. The barking dog fell silent and stared at me intently. It was slightly intimidating. I raised my all-purpose farming tool, hoe, instinctively, feeling my heart calm down. As I observed the two dogs calmly, I noticed something. The one behind was female. Her belly was quite large after all. That meant the one in front must be male then. It looks like they're a couple, doesn't it? I can't just chase them away, can I? Especially since the female dog's legs are trembling. The male dog keeps looking back, worriedly, and occasionally glaring at me. Dogs are farmers' allies after all. When I was younger, I'm sure I wanted to have a dog, but it never happened. Thinking about why dogs deserve our support, I lowered my all-purpose farming tool, hoe. Seemingly understanding this, the dog stopped its glare. Though they might not understand words, for now, I gestured invitingly towards them inside the fence with both hands. Chapter 7. Two dogs had been following me. They were quite obedient. Without any hesitation, they crossed the moat and fence surrounding my sleeping area, but stopped short of approaching the campfire. Were they afraid of fire? I thought to myself, but it seemed not. Instead, both dogs approached the boar carcass that I'd hunted down earlier. It was a large one, so I had left enough meat for us. "They must be hungry," I murmured. I quickly transformed my all-purpose farming tool into a knife and began cutting off chunks of meat from the boar's haunch. That should do it for now. After wrapping the secured meat in a large leaf found while clearing fields earlier, I placed it on the tree trunk where I slept. The rest of the meat, bones included, was left for the dogs to feast upon. They eagerly dug into their meal without needing any further preparation from me. Initially, I understood this much from the current task. There's a table now. Thinking about it, until recently I've been living on the ground. I should have noticed sooner. I split a log lengthwise into two semicircles and flattened their peaks slightly to keep them stable. Voila! A long wooden table with a suitable wild creature's hide was born. While at it, I prepared some logs for seats too. It feels like my civilization level has jumped up instantly. Throughout this task, the dogs were greedily devouring pork. They're eating so much that you'd think they might burst any moment now. But better than letting it go to waste, right? Leaving them to their meal, I started thinking about building a shed. I'll need somewhere to store crops once I start harvesting from my fields. More like a barn, really. Using the all-purpose farming tool, even with my limited knowledge, I managed something similar to that toilet I built earlier. But high platforms were beyond me as an amateur. In the end, all I got was a place much like that toilet, just bigger and without the size floor. The space was about 8 tatami mats large. I had planned to use it for storage, so a reasonable size was desired. 4 sturdy pillars of thick wood ensured sufficient strength. The floor wasn't laid with wooden boards. Instead, it remained the bare earth. Considering storing harvested crops, an earthen floor would keep things cooler. Next, I intended to build shelves and store the harvest there. Just as I was about to fetch lumber for this task, the dogs had finished their meal. The boar was now a magnificent pile of bones. I mused about how these creatures' stomachs worked when suddenly, One of the female dogs let out a distressing cry. Had she eaten too much? I rushed towards her but was growled at by one of the males, preventing my approach. Despite this, I thought it wasn't appropriate given the situation, yet the female dog wandered about before crying out again. What's going on here? Could it be that she's in labor? Wait, what? Isn't there a better place for her to give birth than here? No way. She can't have puppies here. The trunk of the tree is a bed. There's meat stored there. Then, I led the two dogs to my newly built shed. It was better than being exposed outdoors. The female dog seemed to agree and entered the shed willingly, circling around in one corner. The male dog watched her anxiously. Labor, labor. No use, I have no knowledge of this at all. At least it's getting dark. As the sun sets, the temperature will drop too. So, I decided to build a fire inside the shed. I dug up the ground lightly in the center and made an improvised hearth-like shape, then laid down some ash. I stacked wood on top of that and lit it. The smoke escaped through the small window. There's no door here anyway, so there won't be any risk of being smoked out. Next, water. I quickly crafted a large bucket-like container from wood and carried water in it. The female dog lapped it up greedily, confirming I had done right. Afterward, if it happens here, the child will fall directly onto the ground. Is that all right? However, there aren't any nice things like blankets or anything. If I had known this would happen, I should have secured some rabbit or pig fur. I remember seeing a TV show where horses gave birth on straw. But there's nothing like straw around here either. I could gather grass from the forest if it weren't getting dark. It'd be tough to collect grass in the dark woods though, even if I've been cultivating this land. How can I manage? As I pondered this, the female dog started digging at the ground with her paws. Using my all-purpose farming tool, as a shovel, I dug into the corner of the storehouse. This area was already soft from being cultivated with a hoe. Making it even softer with the shovel, I softened about 1 tatami mat's worth in the room's corner for her. The female dog seemed to understand what I'd done, digging at the softened spot and patting down the earth to create her birthing place. Now all that was left was to watch. The pressure was intense now that I'd finally met them. I left the shed to the male dog and stepped away. Night had completely fallen, making everything seem unusually dark, contrasted by the bonfire near my bed and the light spilling from the shed. I hope she gives birth safely. Unable to sleep yet, I decided to work on some small carvings by the firelight next to my bed. By the way, I used a hoe to till the ground where the wild boar's bones lay, turning them into fertilizer. Chapter 8. Morning. In the shed, 4 new lives had been born overnight. 4 tiny black puppies lay there, males and females, just like their parents. The mother dog seemed to have gone through a tough time, but now appeared calm after her easy delivery. Perhaps I watched too much TV while bedridden in the hospital. Anyway, it's good that both mother and pups are doing well. Now, breakfast for everyone. As a congratulatory gift, let me give them some of yesterday's acquired pork from its best parts. Calling over the male dogs to feed them, they eagerly took the meat towards where their female companion lies. I hope she doesn't end up being bossed around by her own pups. But then again, it's only natural for males to care for females after childbirth. I fill up the water bucket in the shed and add more wood to the fire pit. Should I put out the fire? If it were bothering them, they'd probably do something about it already. Since nothing happened this morning, everything seems fine. But just in case those newborn pups get burned, let me create a barrier around the fire with some earth. The hearth feeling grew even stronger, and my breakfast for the morning. A toilet. Oh yeah, those two were covered in wounds. I wonder if they're all right. Looking at the male dog's body, it was indeed full of injuries, but seemed to be healing. It looked like that even from a distance yesterday, so maybe its recovery power is high. Anyway, as long as there are no problems. I'm going out to find food. You can handle this place, I said to the male dog and decided to head towards the forest. Since I gave them pork meat yesterday, my food plans have changed. There's still rabbit meat, but with only roasting as preservation method, supplies aren't reliable. Even if all-purpose farming tool manages somehow, those two might struggle. Well, they've been living on their own until now, so maybe they'll manage somehow. Wait. I'm thinking of keeping all 6 of them completely, including the newborn puppies. But what do you think about that? Did they just come here for giving birth and plan to leave once the pups are grown? That would be a bit sad. Especially since those little ones were so cute, I'd like one of them to stay behind. Probably not gonna happen though. No, wait a moment. It's not decided that we'll leave yet. For now, let's make them think this place is good. Ideally, I'd like their help in guarding my farm. To do that, let's secure food and show some owner-like capability. 10 days have passed since the puppies were born. The 2 dogs and the puppies seem completely ready to rely on me without a care for my worries. I've taken decent care of them, after all. One surprising thing. The adult dogs can easily jump over the log fence and moat I made, even distances up to 5 or 6 meters. They didn't do it when they first arrived because of their injuries or consideration for the pregnant female. Anyway, the adults move around freely, enter the forest, hunt rabbits, and bring them back here. They're probably acknowledging me as their owner. Or maybe they think I'm commanding them to skin them. Either way, helping with food procurement is helpful. Just in case, I widened and deepened the moat a bit more, but the adults still jump over it without any concern. Another surprising thing, the growth speed of those puppies. The puppies' bodies have grown tremendously. At first, they were small and adorable, but after about 7 days, they weaned off milk and started eating meat like the adult dogs. Upon closer inspection, their teeth are starting to grow in, with sharp canines making an appearance. Yet, they still maintain a cute demeanor. The third surprising thing is that both the parent and child dogs have been guarding my fields. To be precise, they've been chasing away birds that approach the field and barking to alert me when they spot suspicious insects. They're quite dependable. I was also slightly concerned about where the dogs would defecate, but now that I've specified a location, they use it accordingly. It seems these dogs might have high intelligence. For the 10 days since the puppies were born, I've been focused on securing food and constructing a new warehouse. Securing food has become more necessary with the increased mouths to feed. And regarding the warehouses, I decided to convert the first one into a doghouse, as they seem to consider it their main home. The multi-purpose tool made obtaining food quite easy. The second time around building a warehouse, having gained experience, I'm able to create something sturdier. I wonder if this side is more comfortable for living. It's truly like a den since it was carved out of the tree trunk. However, there's a weakness in that fire can't be used here due to being inside wood. Should I convert my previous bedding into a warehouse and make this my new sleeping spot? After much consideration, I decided to build a floor in the new storehouse and move in there. Next was observing the fields while focusing on securing wood materials and crafting small items, especially dishes and cups. I had been using them before, but they became for the dogs now that I've improved my skills significantly, even to a sellable quality. However, not satisfied with just that, I'm currently challenging myself to assemble wooden pieces. Before this, all I could do was chip away at wood, which resulted in heavy items. While it's fine for dishes and cups, a bucket for water storage would be difficult to use if it were too heavy. Using the all-purpose farming tool to hook onto them does make them lighter, but relying on it for everything isn't wise either. Being able to assemble wooden pieces will allow for lightweight designs. My ultimate goal is to create buckets. I'm currently practicing by making crates as a warm-up exercise, but how do I prevent water leaks? Other than that, collecting leaves has been another task. They are mainly used for wiping the dog's bottoms in the toilet area. The grass I initially collected proved unsuitable due to prickles, so I've kept some aside. Forest exploration reveals plenty of growth, but transporting it back to our makeshift grass bedding is quite laborious despite not being heavy. However, the result of all that effort was truly rewarding. Incidentally, it was the puppy dogs who were first to claim a bed in the house. Even they found the grass mattress by the fire too scary to sleep on, so we moved them into their doghouse with a proper fireplace set up. Originally intended for giving birth, and now with the grass mattress available, there's no need to worry about being cold. The only concern is how long this grass bed will last before needing replacement. It's not that easy though. Gathering more materials seems daunting once they've run out. The seedlings in the field are growing well, some even flowering already. I can start guessing what crops we have now. Carrots, potatoes, cabbage, tomatoes, pumpkins, cucumbers, eggplants, radishes, spinach, corn, watermelons, and strawberries. All the ones I imagined while preparing the ridges. I wonder if wishing for these crops to grow while making the ridges will actually make them flourish. It's tempting to experiment, but first let's focus on taking care of what we have until harvest time. After all, this is our first time growing any of these crops, and I'm not even sure how much water they need. These plants seem unique to this world too. None of the ones I know back home flower so quickly. So, I've divided one section of the field into 4 parts for testing, giving them both water and fertilizer, just fertilizing around the ridges with my multi-purpose tool, only watering and leaving them alone completely. Lastly, we'll have to deal with pests once harvest time comes. I didn't know how to make pesticides at first, so I thought about roasting them over a fire. But considering the effect on crops, I couldn't bring myself to do it. After pondering various possibilities, I realized that insects disliked when I transformed the all-purpose farming tool into a watering can and sprinkled water with it. Initially, my intention was merely to provide water for the plants, but during this process, I discovered that insects would recoil from it. From then on, whenever I spotted what appeared to be harmful bugs, I'd use the transformed all-purpose farming tool's watering function to eliminate them by sprinkling water over them. Incidentally, none of the dogs showed any interest in eating these insects. They seemed more fond of animal meat. Chapter 9. I decided to give names to the dogs. Calling them male dog or female dog indefinitely was inconvenient. In fact, I had already named the 4 puppies. Since they were black, their names are Kuroichi, Kuroni, Kurasan, and Kurian. Kuroichi is curious and energetic. Kuroni is cautious. He's always by Kuroichi's side. Kurasan has the most strength among them. She's also the only female puppy. Kurian moves at her own pace, often doing things differently from the other 3. So I thought it would be nice to give names to their parents too. I could simply call them Kuro Papa and Kuro Mama, but once when I called them that, they seemed to look quite sad, so I decided to think carefully about this. Candidates: Kuro Black, Hiraku Black, Shiburuto, Schwarz German for black, Noru Noir French for black, Inira, Hai, Kokutaro, Kokumaru. My naming sense seems lacking, but I decided to write names on the ground and let him choose. My characters were meant to be in Japanese, but they appeared as unfamiliar letters. Still, they could be read without any discomfort, probably due to the beginner pack's influence from Godsama. Until now, I hadn't spoken with anyone or written anything, so I wasn't aware of this. Anyway, it's time to decide on names. Once we've decided on Kuro Papa's name, we'll match a female name for Kuro Mama accordingly. In doing so, I reconfirmed the dog's high intelligence. After reading my characters, Kuro Papa seemed set on Schwarz, but Kuro Mama kept pushing her head against him, insisting he write Kuro. Kuro Papa yielded to her protest and reluctantly touched the character for Kuro. Is this really okay? I found myself asking. There was no response, of course, but Kuro Papa's eyes seemed to say something like, "You can't go against your wife. I'll make tonight's dinner extra special." Kuro Papa's name has been decided as Kuro. Now, what about Kuro Mama? Ishira. Yokie. Isuara. Mizor. In the midst of my thoughts, Kuro Mama had already decided on Yuki's name. Despite being Kuro's wife and not considering color, she seemed to be ignoring suggestions like Shiro. I thought Kuro might say something like, "Hey, that's worse than when you named me," but I hoped it was just my imagination. Anyway, Kuro Mama had settled on the name Yuki for her name. Kuro Yuki, Kuroichi Kuroni Kurasen Kurahin. Yuki stood out a bit, but we'll ignore that. The dogs were mostly free to do as they pleased. They'd go into the forest or patrol around the fields, but one of them seemed particularly attached to me. Was it on guard duty? Whatever the case, my loneliness during work had lessened somewhat. When I got some spare time, I carved a flying disc out of wood. It's what you think of when you hear dog toy. The puppies loved it more than expected, and even Kuro and Yuki were fighting over it. The puppies held their own too. They wouldn't let up until each had one to themselves. I ended up having to make discs for everyone in turn so they could play peacefully together. The dogs' squabble had subsided, but I wish they'd stop presenting me with flying discs whenever they see me looking idle. Those guys have incredible physical abilities. If I don't throw them with all my might, they won't be satisfied. My arm's killing me. Chapter 10. 30 days had passed since the puppies were born. They'd grown quite large, and their faces now resembled those of Kuro or Yuki. A new discovery was made today. Horns began to sprout from each puppy's forehead. Upon closer inspection, it seemed that both Kuro and Yuki also bore similar marks on theirs, though they hadn't noticed until now because the puppies wouldn't let anyone touch their heads. After the horns started growing out, however, well, those marks looked rather painful. Would they grow back, I wondered, and are these creatures even dogs? Not really worth worrying about in this otherworldly place. After all, having horns wasn't such a big deal here. One could simply endure any pain caused by them being rubbed against something sharp. Ha. The crops in the fields were thriving nicely too. Most had fruits ready for picking, with strawberries and tomatoes turning red rapidly. Carrots and potatoes also seemed to be doing well as their leaves flourished abundantly. It's about time for the harvest. Regarding the crops I separated in the field and treated differently. In conclusion, those that received care grew faster. In other words, providing water and fertilizer resulted in better growth. Next were the crops fertilized, then those given water, and finally those left untouched. However, even without any treatment, there was a decent yield. Is this typical of this world, or thanks to the all-purpose farming tool? I wondered. Regardless, I thought it'd be easy to harvest with tools like hoes and knives from the all-purpose farming tool. But there were too many crops, enough to make me feel lightheaded just looking at them. Even though Kuro and the others wouldn't help with harvesting, I had no choice but to do it alone. It wasn't unpleasant, but I had to push through. After half a day in one field and 6 days across 12 fields, I finally finished the harvest. Problem 1. The tomatoes have started to ripen, so we must eat them quickly. Fortunately, even Kuro-san enjoys eating them, so that was no problem. Problem 2. Similarly, the strawberries have begun to ripen. We had to hurry and eat them as well. This time, however, there were preferences among the group. Yuki-chan and Kuro-san happily devoured them, but it seems males do not care for them while females prefer them. I ate them quite enjoyably. Problem 3. In this manner, if we don't consume our harvests promptly, they will spoil. Problem 4. We are out of seasonings. Problem 5. We lack cooking utensils. Haha, I see now. A life of abundance can't be sustained by primary industry alone. First things first, we must acquire salt to boil corn. Next, let's try growing rice. Yes, with rice, once cooked it can be eaten. Cooking utensils, damn. There's a mountain of problems to tackle. After harvesting and eating the crops, I started making cooking tools. First up was dealing with pumpkins. They're too tough raw, so I made an oven out of stone slabs. Big rocks were cut using my all-purpose farming tool. Then propped up and heated from below, it looks like a short-legged stone table. Cutting rock thin enough for the slabs wasn't easy. The weight could cause cracks. But after some trial and error, I managed to create one that should do the job, eventually. It'll take quite some time to heat it properly, though. Next was making knives. While my all-purpose farming tool can cut crops fine, it's not ideal for slicing big chunks of meat. So, I made stone knives by carving rocks into blade shapes. They worked well on rabbit meat, so 3 should suffice as backups. Lastly, a pot. Carved from large rock, wood burns too easily. Making one with my all-purpose farming tool is easy but heavy. Someday, when I find clay, making earthenware pots will be better. Anyway, the pot was completed. I made a nice-fitting stone lid, but decided against using it, since it would likely get too hot to handle. A wooden one will do just fine instead. Kuro and the others got excited, thinking it was a new flying disc, which caused a bit of a commotion.
Reusing Audiobook.